Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning, and today we've got another combination that we haven't tried, but it's one that I'm definitely expecting to see some pretty good looking results from. This choke and these shells have both shown us several really good results so far in our testing, so I figured we'll put them together and see what they can both do at the same time. They should work out pretty well for us. But as for the shell we've got out here today, I brought out some more of these. These are some Tungsten Super Slam TSS 20 gauge shells. Big thank you to Joseph for sending some of these in because they've been some pretty good performing shells so far. But as you can see, they are a 20 gauge 3-inch 1 5/8 ounce payload of number 9 TSS shot, moving about 1100 feet per second. And as per the box, it says we should have about 585 pellets in this load, so definitely a pretty good shell here that we should be able to get a good pattern from. And as for the setup we have out here today to run them through, I brought out the Stevens 301 20 gauge with this choke, which Joseph also sent us. So big thank you to him as well for sending this choke. But this is a Carlson's Longbeard XR 568 constriction turkey choke, which once again has shown us some pretty good results in its testing. So I'm thinking this combination should work out pretty well for us. But as for the testing today, everything is set up the same as usual. I've got the turkey target at 40 yards. I've also got the chronograph so we can get our velocity. So we'll get you guys set up with a view of this target, take the shot, look at the chrono, and then look at our results. I definitely have some pretty high hopes for this combination based on what I've already seen out of these pieces. So what can we get when we put them all together? I don't know. It should be pretty good looking, but let's head over here and take this shot and just see what kind of a pattern it can give us. Okay, so that shell gave us 1151 through the chrono. The box does claim 1100, so we are just a little bit above their claim, but that is still well within the realm of reason. And mid 1100s is kind of right where I would expect these shells to kind of want to live at. So I'd say we're looking pretty good up here as far as our velocity goes. Well, what kind of a pattern was it actually able to give us through that Longbeard 568 down there at 40 yards? Let's go check it out and see what we got. Alright, now we're down here at our 40-yard target, and this is what we got. And we very clearly have a dead turkey here all day long. We might be just an inch or two off to the left, but still, that was not really a problem for us here at all, that's for sure. When you have, what, 5 or so through the brain, and probably 5, 6, 7 more of them through the spine, not to mention everything else that hit him as well, yeah, that turkey is not going to go anywhere, even out at 40 yards with a 20 gauge, that's for sure. Now, initially, looking at this pattern, definitely very hot and dense in the middle. We have plenty good enough of a core area there to get the job done. It's got nice leeway a little bit both directions. As you can see, we were a touch off to the left and we still absolutely got that bird. So I really do like the core area. Now we do kind of have one void that I'm noticing right over here behind his back, right in that area right there, but it's not big enough to really cause any issue, clearly. But what I'm also looking at is the outer edges of this pattern. The center, 12, 13 inches looks really nice. The outside, we have a bunch of just sporadic flyers and strings and stuff all over the edges of the paper. So the outer edges are definitely pretty wide open here, or at least just a little bit more splotchy and sporadic and all over the place than what I would like to see. So I definitely wouldn't call it a perfect pattern, but still, we can't argue with that result. That is going to take a turkey all day long for you. And I gotta say, these Tungsten Super Slam shells, I don't really think they're loaded too far under a 12 gauge. They definitely have more recoil than pretty much every other 20 gauge shell that I've shot. And as you can see by the amount of shot on the paper, I definitely think they packed as many pellets as they could into that shell, because that's a lot of shot flying down range, especially for a 20 gauge. But either way, if we were to zoom in just right here on the paper, yeah, that would be a fantastic pattern, that's for sure. But those outer edges are definitely not perfect. Do I think this is the best pattern that we've gotten out of these particular shells? I don't think so. I think they did a little bit better through the Carlson's heavyweight TSS 555 choke. I think it did condense them down just a little bit around the edges, but still, if this is the combo you had, I don't think it'd really be too much to worry about unless there was another bird right next to him. But at the end of the day here, I don't really think there's much else we can say about that here. I think it kind of speaks for itself. Very, very solid 20 gauge pattern, very usable all day long. Definitely don't have to worry about it. The core area does look really good, really nice and even. It's not so baseball tight that it doesn't give you leeway, but it's not blown all over the place either. So I really like the central 12 inches or so of that pattern. We did have that one void I'm noticing in the middle there, but it wasn't a big enough deal to really cause a problem for us. But I would like to see the edges cleaned up just a little bit. Maybe that's me nitpicking, maybe not, I don't know. But either way, a very solid 20 gauge pattern that we can't really argue too much about, that's for sure. Okay, and here's the wad out of that shell, and as you can see, it is a pretty basic TSS style turkey wad kind of design here. Definitely nothing fancy. The insides of the pedals do have these little ribs on them right here, as you can see. I don't really know how much that affects anything, but it does have a couple of them inside of there. That's a little bit different design than some of the other wads out there that people use. But as you can see, it did go through that ported Carlson's choke, and as per typical, it did kind of snag up on the corners and get a couple pinholes in it and stuff. There's nothing stuck down in there, but it's definitely a little banged up, which is not at all unusual for a ported choke. And maybe some of that little snagging and stuff was the reason we saw some of those little sporadic things around the edges, because it definitely also caught the little skirt piece as well there, as you can see. So definitely pretty much what I expected to see as for a wad here, but a little bit of the snagging could maybe have very well caused the edges being a little more sporadic than what we would like, but I still think the wad did basically what it was supposed to do for us. All right, y'all. Well, what did you think about that pattern right there? Definitely a very solid, very usable 20 gauge pattern. Not a whole lot we can really complain about. There was the one tiny little void there in the core, but definitely nothing bad. The edges, however, I would personally like to see them a little bit more condensed or a little more even. But with a core area like that, it might be me getting a little bit picky about it. At the end of the day, though, it's still a turkey pattern that I wouldn't be scared to hunt with in the slightest. You just might have to be a little bit careful about a bird being close to him with the edges looking like that. But as always, leave your thoughts about it down in the comments. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these Tungsten Super Slam shells? And if so, what has been your results with them? And maybe, is there another shell you might want to see through that Longbeard 568 choke, or another choke you might want us to run those Tungsten Super Slam shells through? Let me know all that down below. As well as, would you hunt with that kind of a pattern? Or are you kind of like me and think that, yeah, it is a very solid pattern, but you might want the edges tuned in a little bit more? Let me know all that stuff down in the comments. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.